Confessions of a Reluctant Serial Killer. Chapter 1. Hello, my name is Aaron Lahaka, and recently, I've been involved in some terrible things. Things I would never have dreamed about having anything to do with. Sweat drains from me even now as I try my best to collect my words and put them down for you to read. Though many nights of this summer have been stressful and sleepless, tonight has been one of the hardest. Not just of the summer though, but of my entire life. We are only about an hour or so before the sun comes up, so I feel I have little time to make sure my voice is heard before I do what must be done. My mind is racing, so I'm trying my best to get everything out. As I sit here in my bedroom, in front of my computer, everything is starting to come together. I look over at the same bed I've been sleeping in since I was in middle school, and I realize that I will never feel its comfort again after tonight. I wish I spent my last night here, laying warm and snug within the embrace of its sheets. But it's too late for that. There's no way to turn back time. On the shelf to my left lay the comics I will never read again, and the games I will never again play next to the TV I will turn on no more. I thought for a moment that I shouldn't write this, that I should just lay down and hope that this all worked itself out somehow. But I know better than that, and I cannot allow fantasy to cloud me right now. I need to focus, get the facts together, and get these words down. Luckily, my parents are out of town tonight, so they won't be here when it all ends. Unfortunately, though, down the hall sleeps my little sister Sarah, who is knowing her last good night's rest for a while, I would assume. I would love to go in there and hug her and kiss her forehead, but I do not have the time, and I cannot risk waking her right now. I assume that around the time I finish typing this out and the sun creeps its way up and over the horizon, they will be here to take me away and lock me up. I know how lawyers and the press can spin the facts to fit their own narratives, so I want to get my own story out there before they have the chance to make me out to be worse than I may actually be. To tell you all what really happened this summer and who was really to blame for everything that occurred. While my name will not be clean at the end of all of this, it will be a lot less filthy than they can try to make it. I don't want to be known as the monster this may all make me look to be. First, a little backstory on who we were, as I assume whoever receives this won't really know much about us. The three of us have all grown up together on what some would call the middle class section of our larger than average town. By the three of us, I mean myself and my friends, Dylan Pierce and Anthony Devine. Growing up with parents who made just enough money to live in a nice area, none of our parents made enough for us to have much more than that. Tony with even less than Dill or I. This is why we had always been there to rely on each other. I am the only one with any siblings. However, I have unfortunately never really been close enough with my little sister Sarah, as we were separated by 4 years. Because of this, I had always considered Dill and Tony my brothers. Before this all began, we were just your average teenagers, making our way through high school and wasting away our breaks from the classrooms. Anybody who knew us could tell you that Dill and I were quite even-tempered and quiet, and wouldn't really cause trouble for anyone around us. Tony, on the other hand, had quite the history of violence with a reputation in and around our school and neighborhood. He was always getting into fights in and around our schools and parks, And though he normally lost, he had once gotten himself arrested for beating a kid to the point of hospitalization with that kid's own skateboard. To be completely honest, though, that kid kinda deserved it. He kept pushing Tony's buttons and eventually crossed a line he shouldn't have when he shoved Tony and brought up Tony's mom. Everyone knows what she used to do for a living, but that doesn't mean you should really speak it aloud. That is how you end up in the hospital, as that kid found out the hard way. Tony was never apologetic about it, but did cool down his anger for the most part in our day-to-day lives moving forward. That is until the events of this summer. But to be fair, we all went above what we thought ourselves capable. Other than the few months Tony spent in a juvenile detention center a year or so ago because of the previously mentioned episode with the skateboard, we were mostly inseparable. This was important as we were basically invisible to everyone else in our school, except to each other. We were all pretty okay with that fact, as each other was all any of us really needed as we grew up. That was until the day Elizabeth Hale moved into our town almost a year ago. She was the epitome of the old saying, a diamond in the rough. While she was objectively quite beautiful and was so sweet to everyone, she lived in the shittiest part of the bad section of our town. The house she lived in made the dingy mess of a house I grew up in look like it should have been standing tall behind large, beautiful golden gates and protected by armed security. While everyone at our school seemed to quickly gravitate toward Lizzie, she really only seemed to want to hang out with the three of us, to everyone's surprise. Our own surprise most definitely included. The only reason I can think of, knowing what we know now, is that we were the least threatening group of friends she could find in the whole school. She hadn't heard anything about Tony's indiscretions until she had already become a part of the group. At that point, she had already been taken with us and didn't have any fears of Tony. She believed, and rightly so, that Tony would never hurt her. Her intuition with all of us would have been quite on point, as who would have thought a 130-pound asthmatic, a chubby kid who still slept with a stuffed animal, and the super quiet kid who smiles a lot could be capable of anything terrifying. Well, surprise to us all were the things that would eventually come to pass. The things that caused me to write this. The jerks that made up the football, basketball, and wrestling teams would make their passes at her on a daily basis, and she would politely put them down. The most popular sets of girls hated her for the attention she received from all the jocks and other popular guys, but still kissed her ass whenever they could as to try to get her to join their groups. When I said everyone, that is precisely what I meant. That obviously included the three of us. While Dill and Tony quickly fell head over heels for her, she wasn't exactly my type, and neither were any of us hers. You see, there was something she and I had in common that we didn't share with anyone else but each other. That included Dill and Tony. I don't know how, but she was able to tell my secret from the off. I'm glad, because it made her more comfortable to share her secret with me as well. The reason she didn't reciprocate the feelings of either of our two friends relied heavily on what hung between their legs. This never got in the way of any of our friendships, as while Dill and Tony fought over her attention, the two of us knew that neither of them would come out on top while they grew none the wiser. Though none of us could have ever ended up together, we all really did care for one another, more than we had ever cared for anyone else in our lives. I'd hoped that we would all grow up together, that we would always be friends and would always be close. This was my dream until this summer killed all hope I'd ever had. Now my only hope is to not be remembered as the monster that I may be made out to be. Thank you for listening. I release new chapters every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you prefer to read, I do release all 3 chapters every Sunday on my Wordpress. If you know anybody else who might be interested in this story, please feel free to share. Thank you.